So the trouble with reading a lot of picture books is that they're very misleading. You read them and think, oh, I could do that, which is exactly what I thought. But I got lucky. I stumbled into picture book writing almost by accident and have discovered it to be one of the great joys of my life. My first picture book was published when my younger child was 6 and was based on stories we'd invented for our older child when he was small. And those stories probably originated with my husband's grandfather, who used to tell his grandchildren that if they didn't behave, he was going to put them in a pop bottle. Books gave me access to a world that felt more magical than the one that I was living in, the one where I got up and put on my clothes and caught the bus for school. I wanted to show you a little bit of the lies that we told our child. So when you were small, you used to have a pet ant, and you would take him out for walks on a leash. When you were small, you wore a thimble for a hat. When you were small, we used to give you baths in the teapot, and when you were done, we could just tip you over and pour you out. Lying to children is such fun. A book is a door. Of course, it's also a mirror and a window and a sliding glass door, according to Radine Sims Bishop in her important writings on the subject of representation. A picture book is a powerful thing. It allows a child to see themselves and their own experience reflected, and also to see the reality of people not themselves. And it allows them to imagine themselves into other realities. My one-time editor, Sheila Berry, once said, "Whatever sequence of events it describes should be seen from a child's point of view. The book should depict children as active participants in the story, and it should emphasize the fundamental human rights all children are entitled to, even if it also shows sometimes that those rights are not respected by adults." Picture books are often about agency, and when I look at my own books, I see that I'm trying to find ways to write about this again and again. I wrote a book set in a dollhouse, beautiful illustration by Marie Lafrance, informed by this quotation from Rumer Godden. "It is an anxious, sometimes a dangerous thing to be a doll. Dolls cannot choose, they can only be chosen. They cannot do, they can only be done by." And this was, I'm sorry to say, a little bit how I felt about childhood, is that lack of agency, of other people making decisions for you. And so I have a deep sympathy for that in children. When I published my first book, the cast of characters very much reflected the situation in my own home at the time. 2 white, cishet parents and a child. I honestly don't think I gave this any thought, much like I didn't think about the fact that picture books are generally 32 pages and many other things that I probably should have known. I went into it a little blind, except for the fact that I'd read approximately 7,000 picture books by that point. My second book was again a series of lies told to children, this one about where you came from. This book took me to Book Expo in New York, where I spoke to 100 people in a signing queue in the space of about an hour. And one of the things that kept coming up was that the story, which ends with this page, "That's where I came from," asks Henry. "You dreamt of a baby, and the baby you dreamt became me?" "Oh yes," says his mother, "I remember perfectly now. First there were 2 of us, and then we were 3. That page sort of was open enough that people could find points of identification if they were non-biological parents or single parents, or those who had arrived at parenthood via surrogacy or adoption or whatever. And this got me thinking about how narrow the world that I was portraying in my books was, and led fairly directly to the book A Family is a Family is a Family, where the goal, myself, the illustrator Chin Ling, and our editor at the time, Sheila Berry, our goal was to think about a book that was open enough to provide a mirror for whoever was looking for one.